Podcasting has completely taken over, but most people only see the big studio sets, the celebrity hosts, and the million-dollar productions. On the local level, it can be hard to get people to care. Sitting down for an hour conversation is an investment in this era of the internet. And honestly, not everyone who is doing a podcast should be doing a podcast, let alone being consistent at it. Only 10% of podcasts make it past the first 3 episodes. Let that sink in. To be in the top 10% of the pods, you only have to be consistent for 3 episodes. That's a low bar, but there's still a lot of work to be done. What you don't see is how podcasting actually works at the local level and why I think it's where the future really is. By the end of this video, you'll learn what you need to make a podcast, how to get it off the ground, but also see one in action as I set up and shadow my friend Dylan as he sets up for a guest, explains his gear and his process to us.
Today we're here at the Premise Studio. We've got a 3-camera setup. All of them are Sony cameras. We've got an A6500, an FX30, and an A6400. Variety of lenses. The wide shot is a 14 millimeter, so we can see the whole space. And then 70 to 200, 18 to 105 on the solo views to have them be close up and blur the background, get some shallow depth of field. We've got this Godox light right here and this newly acquired light dome. For audio, we got 2 Shure MV7 microphones, XLR connections into a Zoom PodTrack P4, and that allows me to record multi-track so that both microphones are separate, allowing me to mute one or the other in editing. I always think with an editing mindset because the majority of the work that I do on a daily basis is podcast editing and post-production. So I always love as an editor having as many options as possible to cut to. Like, sure, you could put one wide shot and just have that be the visual the entire time, and you could do some cropping and try to manufacture some angles out of that. Another reason is if someone is talking for an extended period of time, I don't necessarily want to have only the wide shot as an option, and I want to be able to show each individual person and the wide so that I can show the person talking and it's not just dwelling on me listening maybe for 5 minutes. I don't want to show me if the other person's talking. You don't have to spend a lot to get decent quality these days. I mean, these camera bodies at this point, they're a couple years old. You can get them for a couple $100, and you know, you got 4K, you got different picture profiles, and so yeah, if you're doing them in person, it's really just focusing on the fundamentals of framing, composition, camera settings, lighting. Focal lengths are important with these. Like I was saying before, I have this one wide, but I make sure, because I have a wide shot, I don't want the 2 individual cameras to be too wide. So it's all about maximizing the potential of all of these, getting some variety. This is the setup that I've developed over years of accumulating my camera kit. I wouldn't say there's anything special about it. You can certainly have more sophisticated mixers and setups where you can switch the cameras behind the scenes, but for me, this is really, I've gotten good results out of it.
What I love about this setup is not about having the most gear, it's about having the right gear. Podcasting works when it removes friction, not when it turns into a flex of the right gear. Because honestly, it's so much more about the content shared throughout the conversation.
I started recording my own podcasts and it was early 2021. And I just did that not for business reasons. It's just because I loved the concept of interviewing people, just the art form of really peeling back the layers and learning about people in the medium of an interview I thought was intriguing. And also I did editing and video production, so I thought it was the perfect way to marry those 2 concepts together. I started doing podcasts professionally actually by accident. I think it was spring of 2023. A friend of mine referred me to someone who was starting his own podcast, and I never edited a podcast professionally besides my own, but I got into that process, realized there's all this potential around short form. Just from a branding perspective, if you have a personal brand or you're a business, you want to be creating content consistently. So it can be really daunting about how you generate a lot of content in a short amount of time or do it efficiently. And one way to get a lot of volume of content is to sit down and record a podcast or multiple episodes for a day, and you have a couple hours of footage. You can interview business partners or clients of yours, talk about their experiences. Really, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can talk about. I know it's a very oversaturated, industry. There's a lot of podcasts out there, but I think at the end of the day, just getting content is important, and podcasts are a great entryway into just sitting down and recording things. The versatility is what's really one of the major benefits of podcasting, is because, like I said, you can sit down and record, and if you have an hour recording, that can be 5 different short form clips, that could be a long form YouTube video, that could be an audio file for Spotify, or you can put the video on Spotify. And regardless of what messaging you want to craft, really all it requires from the person hosting the podcast is you sit down, you record. I learn something new on every shoot that I do. I can honestly say that, because I've been on shoots where sometimes the microphone is blocking someone's face. So next time I ask them to lower it a little bit. There's times where there's things in the background that aren't right. People are out of focus. The audio levels aren't right, or the lighting's too bright, or I don't like how a window looks in the background. There's just something new that you can't predict every time. So my suggestion to people is always there's this quote that I love. It's, I think it's Larry Ellison said, "A foolish doer will outperform a smart thinker every time." And I love that quote, because if you have all these great ideas of podcasts that you want to record, and you're really smart about it, but you're not recording anything, then the person that is setting things up, messing up, being bad at interviewing, saying a bunch of filler words, that person is going to get better much quicker than someone who just sits behind their desk and thinks about recording and doesn't actually do it. So that's always my suggestion, is don't wait for perfection. Don't wait to be the perfect interviewer. Don't wait to have the top celebrity guests. Don't wait to have the perfect setup and equipment. Just do it, mess up, you'll learn better. And I've been recording podcasts for 5 years at this point, and I've gotten better at it just from doing. So that's always my suggestion.
This is the part that you don't see. The part of podcasting is the final product. But by pulling back the curtains, it's super interesting and so much more about pre-production than you think. It's hosting, listening, guiding the conversation, and creating a space where people actually want to show up. Getting people to open up is the hardest part. It takes work to greet them, make them feel at home, make them feel comfortable enough to get on camera, especially if this is new to them. And so something I've been learning recently is that the podcast actually starts as soon as that guest opens the door. What I try to do is, if we've had conversation before or we know a little bit about each other, I try to get this guest in this chair that they're going to be sitting in for the pod as soon as possible, right? You can have conversations at the door, talk about the setup and everything like that. But when you start getting into the meat and potatoes of like what you guys are going to be talking about, sit down as early as you can, because it's so important for them to feel comfortable in the seat that they're actually going to be sitting in. Let the lights hit them, let the cameras be on them, and you can hit record anytime. But it's so nice for them to really sit in to where they're going to be talking for the next hour or so before they even get on, because as soon as that camera turns red, the red light of doom comes on, you just know that they're going to seize up even just a little bit. And what I've also noticed is at the very end, when you feel like you've completed the podcast, keep the cameras running. Just be like, yo, we did it. That was so good. And let them reflect on their journey, and maybe they had been holding back part of what they wanted to talk about until off camera. And so a lot of my clients actually, some of the best moments from these podcasts happen as soon as you think it is over. They lean back a little bit. They might be a little bit further away from the mic, but that's okay because the meat is right there. So if you can, keep the cameras rolling as you guys debrief, or let it just kind of a little bit, because some best moments come out of that. And if you can do that and let that run for a little bit, you might even get an extra 10 or 15 minutes of good talks from that. And then you can say, man, I'm so glad we kept rolling. Like, you over there did it awesome. And guess what? We got even more 10 minutes out of that. So that was super cool. But that's so important when you go about podcasting, is just like the whole thing starts as soon as someone walks through the door. You just finished the podcast. You just got your friend out of here. And now what are your first impressions coming off of that? Did it go well? What have you been working on?
I'm always nervous going into the interviews because even if they give me a list of topics, which he did, I always want to have a structure in my mind of how it should pan out. And I want to have sort of a narrative structure to it where my tendencies are to have it be linear, where we start early in the journey and go towards now and then wrap up with lessons and things like that. But I've learned to just have maybe 5 topics in my head and just have a conversation. And if I hit a dead end, then I just have those in my back pocket where I can get back on track. The other thing that I want to focus on more with these interviews is to have them be story driven and try to get the guests to tell stories. And then a lot of lessons will be derived out of those stories, as opposed to just asking, which I think it's good to ask tactical questions, but I think, as people, we relate to stories and storytelling. So I think that's what I've been trying to do with these interviews, and I think I've been doing a better job in the past couple. I think that 1 episode per week is a little ambitious to do all by myself. I think if I outsourced the editing, it would certainly be possible. Now that I have this arrangement with the studio here that's right around the corner from me, with the equipment here, it will save time commuting, setting up, tearing down. So it's really scheduling and preparing for the interviews. And then if I can outsource the editing, then I think, it's certainly possible to do it weekly. But I also think that maybe bi-weekly is a more reasonable, which I think is common for a lot of podcasts that even I edit for my clients. A lot of them are bi-weekly, and it leaves a little bit of breathing room for the audience in between them, but it's still consistent. So I think that might be a good middle ground of a goal to aspire to. But consistency is definitely a part of it. For whether you're doing YouTube videos or podcasts or short form, you got to be consistent. If you think that you would be a good guest on my podcast, Dialogue with Dylan, then you can send me a DM on Instagram. It's Dylan G. Delaney. And or if you know anyone who you think would be a good guest, then I'd love to hear different people's stories or get some other people considered. So feel free to reach out.
And what he's talking about here is real work, iteration. Every episode teaches you something. The people who win aren't the people that go viral once, it's the people that stay consistent and show up 52 times. You want to build super fans, not 10,000 normal fans. People who actually show up for you and not just the guests that you bring on or the topics you talk about. It's, at the end of the day, a little bit more about you and your person, because you get to sit with them for so long. And that's why I'm betting hard on podcasting. 1 episode doesn't change everything, but a year of showing up absolutely does. Watching this process up close is exactly why I'm building a podcast studio here in Lancaster City. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast or turning your ideas into something real, I would love to bring you along on that journey and bring that to life. It's no pressure, it's no big sales pitch. I just want to help you grow and tell your story. So if you're interested, reach out. I'd love to help, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.